OT Cup.
Centennial Cup champions in 2024.
This is the OJHL All Access Podcast. What's going on, everybody? It is Alex Bastivansky here, and once again, I've got we've made a slight tweak to the dream team here, boys. We've got Ron Valentine, OJHL feature writer. We've got Alan Corkum, the play-by-play man for your TV and the Georgetown Raiders. And we told Joe Washcrack to buzz off this week. So Joe's got other commitments, but we're so happy to have Mike Galati, who takes a backseat to nobody, the head coach and GM of the Markham Royals, who's going to give us the coach's perspective today. Guys, welcome, Mike. Welcome to the show for the first time.
Thanks, guys. Happy to be here. Just I don't want to make it a habit, so this might be one and only time. I hope.
So, well, you know how much
playoff edition anyway. Playoff edition. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, unfortunately, right. We had to rib Joe about that from time to time over the years. But I love having Joe as a guest as well. So, guys, thanks for joining. Yeah, thanks for joining, guys. We got a lot to talk about. Round 2 of the OJHL playoffs, the battle for the Buckland, and let's get this out first and foremost. We've got 3 series that are done up to this point. Tonight we've got the JRCs in Halliburton and Minden, to face the Huskies in Game 6. So we'll talk about that series a little bit more as we go throughout the show. But let's just talk about what's gone down in round 2. Let's review the series, get everyone's perspective on it, and let's start with Leamington and Buffalo. We thought the Sabres would put up a little bit more of a fight in this one. There were some good games for sure, but it was a Leamington 4-0 sweep, the number 1 seed in the West. Let's start with Mike, coach's perspective. I mean, you played the Flyers this season, a powerhouse team. Obviously, I'm assuming this didn't shock you that they won the series. Were you shocked at all that it was in 4 straight games?
No, not at all. They're ready to win this year. We played them. I think it was our second last game of the season, so we got them late in the year where all their trades had been made and they were ready for the playoffs. And we actually had a really good game against them. We tied them 4-4, but they're all 4 lines were real good. Their 6D are real good, and they got the best goalie in the league. When you do get through all of that, you got to deal with Vandenberg, who's been really, really good. So it's not much surprise. Buffalo's a real good team, and even though they got swept, I thought every game was close. There's a couple 1-goalers that a bounce here or there. They go the other way, but look, they're Leamington is ready. They're ready to win, and they've done a phenomenal job in putting that team together for sure. And they've got a great coach, and he has them ready every night. They're prepared, and they didn't lose many games this year, so it's not much of a surprise.
They are who they thought we were, I believe is the expression to. But which NFL coach said that? Alan, you're
Edwards.
He was. That's right. Yeah. But Alan, how about yourself? I mean, we all called a Leamington win in this series, but what's your take on the series? Colton Smith, by the way, 13 points so far in the playoffs. Continuing on what he did in the regular season. But Alan, what was your take on the series?
As I said in the previous podcast, Leamington is a horse. They're a machine. Now they're perfect 8-0 in the playoffs. They maybe not have been challenged as much. They're probably challenged a little more in this series than they were against Niagara Falls in the first round. But give Buffalo credit. They did fight hard, but there was a couple of games where there was a couple empty netters that Leamington got to win the game. I thought Buffalo might steal one game, but it ended up being a 4-game sweep. But yeah, Dale Mitchell is a great coach. Very intense behind that bench. He's always adamant, a little bit animated on that bench, but he gets his players going, gets the best of them. And yeah, he said Marcus Vandenberg, one of the best goalies in the OJHL, stood on his head in the series, kept Leamington in every game, and they rewarded him with the big 4-game sweep. And yeah, they got some great players. Colton Smith And they got the Grundner brothers, and they have Denny, who had a great series as well. You have Ethan Walker, a former Burlington Cougar, Lindsey Muskie as well. And you have Chara Mataro on the back end, Marquise Brown. So they have a lot of depth on defense, a lot of depth at forward, and great goaltending. This team is going to be hard to stop. But yeah, so far a perfect 8-0 in the playoffs, and they're rolling right now. It's going to be tough for the next team that's going to be taking them on. That'll be Milton. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
We'll get to that in a second. Yeah. Ron, what did you think?
I think when we sat down last time, we basically all said, if there's going to be a sweep, it's probably going to be this series. And even though we didn't probably go ahead and predict the sweep, I think most people looking at the matchup were Buffalo is a solid team. They don't have a lot of firepower. They have a couple of guys who can really score, like Cam Doran, who can really score the clutch goals. But you need a little bit more than that when you come up against Leamington, because they can throw everything at you. And or even though Smith got 13 points, Michael Denny got 13 as well. So, you know, they're always firing on all cylinders, and it's as Alan said, it's going to take a tough team to stop them for sure. But full marks to Buffalo. They played really well, and some teams got to win, and this was Leamington's game.
And one other thing we talked about in the last podcast, which is unfortunate, but in terms of lopsidedness when it comes to fan support, I mean, wow, Leamington, as usual, just getting great crowds and everything. And that's, we'll see how much that benefits them in the series against Milton, who's going to have some rocking crowds as well.
Yeah.
Again, getting ahead of myself. Yeah. We'll go over that series in a second. Let's do it now with Collingwood though. Joe Washcrack, got to give it to Joe. He called it right from the start. Milton was a dark horse in the playoffs.
I said the same. I said the same. I said after we played them, sorry to cut you off, but after we played them, we actually beat them 2-1 in overtime. But Monaco had the best game, one of the best games I've ever seen him play. I turned to Bonnie, our assistant coach. I said, "That's the best team we've played all year."
Really?
And at the start of the playoffs, I said they're my pick to win. And they're very well coached. I like the way they play. They play heavy and hard, and now they have a goalie that has the experience. They made that trade for Bickle. That's I think put them on another level here. And what they did to Collingwood is I've never seen that happen in 4 games, and the 4 wins were like convincing. So they're it's going to be a really good series. I if you're asking me to pick, I'm going to pick Milton, but it can go either way. There's I think the 2 best teams in the league.
I don't want you to jump ahead too much because we still got to talk about the Collingwood series here, buddy.
Oh,
but
okay.
I was going to ask you, Mike, this year's Collingwood compared to last year's Collingwood, if you were to compare the 2 teams, which the team that won the Centennial, which one was last year's team significantly stronger than this year, do you think? Or
I'm going to say one name, and Noah Pack. I think he's he's the biggest difference. I think with that team, and no disrespect to Tegelar, I mean he's a real good goalie as well. He was really good, but I think Pack was special. And 2 years in a row, the best goalie in the league. They win. They have real good teams in front of them, but he was the difference. And he masks a lot of mistakes and a lot of nights when you're not your best. He seemed to be always at his best, and that's kind of reassuring when you have that guy.
When did you pick up your win against Milton, Mike? How late in the season was that?
It was before Chris. I want to say November.
So they hadn't even really hit their stride quite yet because they really came on strong.
We didn't win a ton this year, but
that's good, man.
We probably didn't deserve to win that, but we did. And like I said, Monaco was lights out, and we beat them in overtime. But they were just heavy, and our guys felt it.
But you can take pride in that, man, because Joe Washcrack also was talking about how I keep using his full name. I would just call him Wash if he was here. It feels almost so formal to be calling him. But anyway, when Wash was on, Chargers dropped Leamington this season. That was their Stanley Cup when Leamington was ranked, I believe, number 1 in Canada at the time. Alan, you're nodding your head. Is that right? Leamington, at least they were top 5 at the time. When
that was Leamington's first home loss of the season, and it was like the big
Crazy.
shock. Like we thought, on paper it probably would have been a one-sided game, but Chargers went down there, played their system, fought hard, got a big 3-2 victory, and full credit to Joe and his team. And now he's going to try to do the same thing in Caledon next season.
Yeah. But I mean, Mike, that's good, right? You take those wins, even though maybe the season didn't live up to your expectations in terms of wins. Those are important building blocks. That's good for you guys to knock off the Flyers. But so guys, Collingwood, Ron, Alan, let's just finish this off. One thing that's really, I just did an OJ reel in regards to Milton scores. I mean, the top 3 scorers in the playoffs right now are all on Milton, right? Madden McDougall, Luke Johnson, and Graham McCauley, plus 2 more guys in the top 10. They were just overwhelming, weren't they? Let's start with Alan. Alan, your thoughts on the series?
I just remember back to the last podcast we did. I said who would get the game-winning goal in game. Well, I thought it'd be Game 7 for Milton, but I said Ivan Fabjan, and he was credited with the game-winning goal in Game 5, so he actually got the series winner. So kudos to me for that one.
You got it.
He's in the top 10. He's in the top 10 in scoring, but Graham McCauley's a defenseman. I couldn't believe that it was the game on Friday night in Milton. I covered it for your TV, end to end, like Bobby Orr scored a wraparound goal to get the scoring started, and that seemed to just get Milton going. They were all over Collingwood in that first period. The Blues tried to fight back in the third, but just it was too much menace, and I just can't believe.
Yeah, they're
like said, it's like they dominated. You never saw the Blues dominate like this in the last 3 seasons, and he did hit the nail on the head with the goaltending. I think, no disrespect to Teglar, he's a great goaltender, had many shutouts this season, stood on his head a lot, but I think the experience of Bickle was a difference in the series. He brought major junior experience, played for the Oshawa Generals, played for the Charlottetown Islanders of the Q League, and I think just that veteran presence steadied Milton. He had 2 shutouts to start this series, was a little bit shaky in the middle games, but then fought back with a good performance on Saturday night to get the series victory. And I'll tell you, Milton's got a deep team as well, like Leamington. Luke Johnson's been up there as well, and you got Justin DeZodi from the OHL. Madden McDougall's been scoring, so they got a lot of depth on D and in forward. So it's going to be quite the matchup, but full marks of Milton. And Collingwood, give them credit. 2 straight Buckland Cup titles, national champions. Got to give them a tip of the cap. They had a great run that was ended by the Milton Menace.
I think Dan made 2 trades this year that turned his team into what they are. One was Bickle, and the other one was the Luke Johnston kid, who came in, and he's like a man. He's a unicorn. You don't see these types of players a lot. They're big and heavy and long and can score and plays mean, and in the playoffs that's what wins. And those 2 trades that turned their team, and hats off to Dan. He did it, and they're reaping the benefits right now.
Mike, that's one of the things that Wash commented it as well going into the playoffs, even before they started the first round, was this is a heavy, nasty team to play against as well. They like to play physical. They can get in your face. They can intimidate. The Madhouse in Milton is, a crazy place to play when it's packed. But Ron, your thoughts in this series, and just to further what Alan commented on, let's just pause for a second, really, and give credit to the Blues. They've been great representatives for this league. What they've done even this season was a really good year for them, obviously, in advance. But great representatives from the league, making the Centennial 2 years ago in Manitoba, and then, of course, winning it all last year. They really should be congratulated. Campoli and Tarantino, the job they've done there. So although it's the end of a chapter, they reload guys, I guess, for next year. It'll be interesting.
They'll be fine.
They'll be fine. They're not going to have a problem with attracting top talent up there to the Eddie Bush. Ron, what was your thought on the Collingwood series with Milton?
Yeah, I got a chance to talk to Dave Steele in between periods in one of the Milton home games, and he admitted it's a rebuilding year. It's very, very difficult in this league to get that trophy 3 times in a row. Doesn't matter how good your team is, and he knew it was going to be a little bit of a rebuilding year for the team. they did come up with a ton of injuries early in the season, which they managed to get through. But when you see the way that Milton team played, they did not give Collingwood a chance to get set up to do anything. They were in the face all the time. And as
100%.
Mike was saying, Luke Johnson is just he was the captain of the Toronto Junior Canadians, when he was traded to Milton. And he has just come right through for them. And Ivan Fabjan, I was talking to him earlier for an article I'm doing on the OJ, and he had 5 game winners so far in the playoffs. And I know game winners can be skewed. It's not always the big goal, and it can be affected by an empty netter or something like that. But I mean, when somebody like that can come through, and they've already got McDougall and Dezotti and all the big shooters that they've got, it's difficult. And their defense, if you look at that defensive lineup, may not be big names, but they're players that have been through the mill. They've played hockey, for a long time, and overall, really, they did. They dominated Collingwood. I know Collingwood came back and did win that home game, but really, this is you've got to think based on that. This might be menace everybody.
Well, we're gonna get to their matchup in a moment. Yeah. Well, let's do the other series that is completed as we move out east, and that's number 1 Trenton against the 4-seeded Stouffville Spirit. Trenton takes it 4-1. There were some good games here, though, guys, and we also, we got to give kudos to the Spirit, who are now just this really, really good season. Just ran into a really good team in Trenton, but. Mike, let's start with you on this one. Then, what did you take from this series, and what did you think of Stouffville's effort to try to stay with Trenton?
I really like Stouffville's team. I talked to Kenny Burrows a lot.
Congrats to Kenny, by the way. Congrats to Kenny.
Congrats.
Yeah, executive of the year.
Yeah, send him a message. Yep. But he's got a real good team there, and I think. TJ's a great coach. He does a great job. They play structured. They gave us a ton of issues this year when we played them. They play hard. And you look at that series and game 3, they're down 2-0. If they hold it together for another 3 seconds, they're going into a third overtime. And who knows? They win that game. It's 2-1. It's that's how close that series was. And 3 seconds into the second overtime, they give up a shorthanded goal. Like, it's heartbreaking. But I mean, that's how close it was. They're a real good team, and I think they have a ton of guys coming back, which will make them good again. And I mean, Trenton's Trenton. They've been good for a long time, and they know how to win. And they're a team that even in games they shouldn't win, they find a way, and Smitty finds a way. He does a great job with his recruiting, and he does a great job, getting his team to play every night. And they're 2 good teams, like you said before, Ron. One has to win, one has to lose, but Stouffville's got nothing to be ashamed of. Trenton's been from start to finish the best team on our side. So.
When was the last time that Trenton didn't have a competitive team? Would we have to go back to the days of the Sting, Ron? Like, I mean, as the Golden Hawks, as the Golden Hawks, they've every single year, it seems like they've been just right up near the top.
Well, look at the guys they have run it. Smitty, before Smitty, they had Jerome for a long time. Picolet,
John McDonald, of course, for so long as GM.
Marty Abrams was there. Like, these, they go out and they hire good people that know what they're doing. So,
Alan, what was your take?
Well, you got to give Trenton full marks, another big win, and they've done it without their big star David Fournier. He was injured for the series, so I mean, you got to give him credit. Some of their other players stepped up, like Teo Artichuk, Thomas Kuipers, and don't forget the goaltending of Ryan Sanborn. He just stood on his head in this series, and he out-goalied Kyle Downey and Mason Johnson of Stouffville, and that was the difference in the series, was goaltending. Because I said the games were so tight, razor-thin margin of error, and Sanborn just stood on his head, got the saves when he needed them, and they got the big victories. And but Stouffville, give him credit. It was Captain David Paglia and broadcaster Chris Mayberry that called them the no-names. Got to give the no-names credit. They fought hard. They played as a team. They gave Trenton all they could handle, but just Golden Hawks is a little bit too much talented. But as Mike said, if a lot of these players come back next year for the Spirit, watch out for them next year. They're going to probably be in the top 2 or 3 of the Eastern Conference. But yeah, just Trenton too powerful, just too deep, and they're going to be a threat to whoever they play next in the Eastern Conference final.
Corbin Roach tied for 4th in the scoring in the playoffs with 16 points right now. Got to see Lachlan Wells too of Stouffville tied with Roach with 16 points. So, great job by the Spirit forward there to, really come through in the playoffs. But Ron, you rounded out here. What did you take from the series?
Yeah, Wells was a good acquisition, former Oakville Blade, and he really came through with the Spirit there for sure. But it was just like it was just one mountain, just a little bit too big to climb at the end there. Not to take anything away from the season they had and the playoffs they had, but as Mike said, when you scored against with 1 second left in a second overtime, talk about something that's going to break the camel's back. That's probably going to do it, And then you've got get up for the next game, and I know the weather interfered with that, but kudos to Stouffville, a terrific season, and I don't think they can hang their heads at all with what happened in that series.
Yeah, no, agreed all around, guys. So this sets up our so junior Canadians, Haliburton, the one series that isn't done yet. This is thanks to the weather sort of wreaking havoc on everything right now due to postponements and stuff. So tonight it is the JRCs in Haliburton, with Haliburton currently leading 3-2 in the series. It's been everything that we said it was going to be, guys, this series between two very evenly matched teams. Mike, you obviously you could fill us in on what you thought about these teams during the regular season, but what have you thought of the series so far?
Yeah, look, there are two real good teams. I think this could be the toughest one to call. You got a junior Canadians team that's filled with skill and talent and a really, really good goalie. But again, they lack a little bit of experience. They're not the oldest team in the league. So, but hey, they've had a great year. They've had a great year from start to finish. They were the second best team on our side, and Haliburton is again another good team. They were second, third, and separated by a few points. And this series is separated by a couple goals only, and it's I think far from being over yet. I think this could go 7, and I'd love to see that go 7. That's it. Game 7 will be nice to watch.
Yeah, guys, Ron and Alan, we don't need to do like a big thing, but anyone who wants to chime in on what you think about it so far I think most of us called 7 games on this one anyway, right? But which one of you guys wants to jump in with what you've seen so far? It has been a really good series.
Yeah, I think one thing, Tyler Hodges has really come through big in his second term with the team, and he's got a goals against average of, I think, 1.69 right now, and Stephen Tottle's on the bench there, and he could step in and almost do the same thing. I mean, they have that's been one big thing. The philosophy is a little bit different, as Mike was saying, between these two teams. You've got a relatively young JRC team, and you've got Haliburton, who've got like Ty Petru from Flint, you've got Ty York from Barrie, you've got Chase Lefevre from Peterborough, you've got Nate Paul from Kingston, you've got Bradshaw from Flint. I mean, all these guys are OHL players and not just fringe players. But
and Lefevre especially, Lefevre was really impressive.
Yeah,
Lefevre with Peterborough and the Steelheads, I believe he got traded to. Steelheads, yeah. I was a little shocked. It was just a numbers game that he wasn't able to play with Brampton. I keep saying Mississauga, but numbers game. But he was a big, strong, good kid who really is a major junior player for sure. So that was a great pickup by Haliburton. But anyway, Ron, I interrupt. Sorry, but
and I got to see them in one game in Burlington. With the one game they came down. The speed of that team and the transition, the way they could transition the puck from defense to offense, really, really quite remarkable. And I personally, I think with the win they had in Game 5, I'm kind of leaning towards them tonight and looking that they might take it.
Alan, quick, what do you think?
The Junior Canadians is Mike and Rod said, a lot of skill and speed. And they seem to like the team that I cover very closely, the Georgia Raiders. There's 4 ex-Raiders on that team. Gabe Torello, who came via Milton in the Luke Johnson trades. You see that's worked out for the Menace. But he's been doing great for the junior Canadians. He's putting a lot of goals in.
Yeah.
They also have Christian Lamanna. They have Connor Thompson-Dick, and they have Colin Mond, and they have some other great players like Nathan Phillips. And so they've been just doing the thing. And my prediction of the second round when they did the podcast was JRC in 7. So they're going to have to come out big tonight and pull off a big victory, an upset
Big
on the
game.
road, and bring it back to Toronto to get the 7-game victory, if I'm correct. But it's going to be tough to win, especially in a different rink. And as I believe Mike said maybe earlier that it's a little tighter in the alternate rink that they're playing in up in Haliburton County instead of the normal rink because they're using the Nesbitt as a warming center. So they're playing at the AJ LaRue Center. So we'll see if that changes the dynamic for the series. So nonetheless, it's been a great series, and whoever wins will give Trenton all they can handle in the finals.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's get through to the final four. Well, we know 3 of the teams anyway at this point, guys, but let's start with Leamington and Milton. This is one of the best conference finals I think we've had in some time. 2 teams playing extremely well. The season series, Milton won 2 games. Leamington won 1 in regulation and 1 in overtime. So they basically split the season series, but 1 win for Leamington was in overtime. Let's start with the coach here. You kind of tipped your hand a little bit before as to who you thought might come out on top, but tell us what you think in this series, Mike, because these are 2 very evenly matched teams.
Yeah,
Leamington all season has been up there, and Milton really surged as the season went along. So what's your take on this?
Yeah, and that's the thing with playoffs. It's not always the best team from start to finish that wins. It's the team that gets hottest and is the best at the right time. And I think Milton right now, that's got to be a huge confidence boost, beating and dismantling of a Blues team like that. And it's, you go to, there's 2 different rinks. One is an Olympic size rink, and then in Milton they play in a rink that's very, very small. So home ice is going to be a huge advantage here. Definitely the way Milton plays, their rink favors them a ton. They're just big and heavy and long, and their D are big, and they make it hard on you. And in a rink that size, it's a long night every time you're in there. But, Leamington's rink is Olympic, and it's tough to play in as well. And they've seemed to master the way they play there. So I'm leaning Milton, but if you say Leamington wins this, it doesn't surprise me either. This is probably the best series, and it could be the final. So,
yeah, Alan,
I'll say Milton in 7.
Okay, Alan, how about you? You're gonna be there, I'm assuming. Broadcasting, probably.
Yep. Yeah, I'll be covering the games in Milton for your TV. Be calling game 2 on Sunday is the first game at the Madhouse, 6:00, and then the fun begins in Leamington 7:00 on Friday night. So that should be fun. But yeah, it's got to be the Vandenberg Bowl because Marcus Vandenberg, the star goalie for Leamington, against his brother Spencer, who plays for the Milton Menace. So the family's going to get at least one of the sons in the Buckland Cup Championship, so they're not going to lose, but one of the brothers will have to, unfortunately. Yeah, it's going to be a great series. This is a rematch of last year because Leamington beat Milton at 5 games last year in the second round before they fell to Collingwood in the conference finals. So Milton will have a little bit of revenge in their minds, and they're rolling at the right time. They've only lost 1 game in the postseason, whereas Leamington has lost 0. So they're 8-0. Menace are 8-1. So it's going to be 2 great teams, and as Mike alluded to, the crowds are going to be great at both arenas. It could be a home series, but Milton just very big and heavy with Luke Johnson, Matt and McDougall, just to name a couple. And then you have Colton Smith, the Grundner brothers, Michael Denny, just to name a few on Leamington. And then you have great goaltending, Carter Bickle for Milton, Marcus Vandenberg for Leamington. So it's going to be really tough to call. It might come down to that game 7 on home ice. It might come down to home ice advantage in this one. I'll have to come back and give you a prediction because it's really tight to call right now, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be one series, and as Mike said, it could be a Buckland Cup final. This one just has the makings of that, but great coaching, great players, great everything with these 2 teams, great fan bases as well. It's going to be big crowds, probably over 1,000 at each rink per game.
Ron, what you think?
The interesting part is if it gets down to specialty teams, because Milton's power play right now is I think 36% success rate. And you look at Leamington's penalty kill, and they're at 96%. So as well as something's got to give between the two teams, something's got to give there between the PK and the power play. I've seen both teams quite a little bit this season, and as Mike was saying, you don't have to be super strong all year. Milton was kind of iffy for a lot of the first half of the season, winning and losing. Now they have just got together to a point where they're so difficult to play against, and they're so confident, and you can just tell, especially when they come out, they do what they want to do because they've got the confidence now that they can do it. And a guy like Madden McDougall, who was a contributor all season, all of a sudden he's the number one scorer in the playoffs. So it's crazy. It's not just one guy they're relying on at all. And Bickle, I mean, you've got goalies that have got amazing goals against averages this season in the playoffs, under 2. Bickle is at 2.01. So and he makes the big saves too. Of all the goalies I've seen, Carter Bickle is probably the one that can make the big save when it's really needed. So you don't need a prediction on this, do you, by any chance, Alex?
I was going to ask you for one. We didn't let Joe off. We're not letting you off. Joe was on.
As Mike said, it really, I see a 7-game series. After we've all said this, it'd probably be 4 straight to somebody. But if I was going to right now, I'd give the edge to Leamington simply because of the balance they've got. I know they've got a lot of traveling to do and all that kind of stuff, but I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Milton winning. So I'm kind of opposite to Mike there, but I'll go with Leamington in 7.
Yeah, I think I said at the start of the last series that I thought Leamington was sort of the team that I was predicting at that point to go all the way this year. And I got to say, I still love that Leamington team. No slight on them, but the way that Milton is playing right now, and Mike, listening to what you're saying about, you called at the beginning of the playoffs that they were your dark horse, listening to what Wash was saying as well, man, I listened to what head coaches say, and that stuck in my head when Joe said that, because I was riding pretty high on Milton. By the way, and I've brought this up a million times, Mike, but isn't it funny that Milton never cracked the CJHL top 20? It was always Leamington, it was Trenton, JRCs, sometimes Halliburton, and I don't know if Milton ever cracked the top 20, but in the OJ coaches poll, you guys seemingly almost always had Milton above the JRCs and Halliburton. It was really interesting. Clearly, you guys saw it.
But they seem to find their way a little later in the year, and I think, get in trouble for saying this, but that conference, I think this year was a little tougher than ours, from 1 to 8 or 1 to 10. Whereas usually the East is a little stronger. I think that side was for once stronger and deeper. So a couple more losses to teams that are pretty good, that but they seem to find their way a little later, and that's probably the right time to find it, is later in the season, going into playoffs. And they made 2 big trades that kind of turned their team. It did. You bring in 2 guys like that, and hey, now they found their way, and they're rolling at the perfect time. So,
well, since I held your feet to the fire, guys, I gotta make my call, and I'm saying Milton in 7, but this is just, it could go either way. That's how good these 2 teams are. Yeah. But that's my sort of, I just get a Milton feeling. What's that, Mike?
If you said Leamington in 4, I'd see that too. Every game would be tight. Every game could go into overtime.
Yes.
That's how tight this is going to be. And it's no, just because we say 7, we'd like to see 7, I think.
Absolutely.
But, hey, this could go. We had a series last year versus St. Mike's. We got swept, but 3 of the 4 games were overtime, and even the one that didn't was a 1-goal game. Like, they were very tight. This could be the same. 2 good teams going at it, and one team has to win, one team has to lose. I'd love to see 7, because it gives us 7 games of something good to watch. But it's interesting.
I think also, in defense, if you like, in the CJHL, you look at those top 20 rankings, and then you look at the winning percentage, and it almost mirrors the winning percentage. So if you've got a winning percentage that's slightly outside that top 20, you're not going to get in. It takes the coaches like Mike to know how that team is performing, but I mean, what else can they do? They've got to draw up a criteria. They don't see all the leagues, so they've got.
I've never given much weight to the CJ because they also balance it out with a team from certain amount of teams from the league and stuff. So I've never, but I just found it, always found it amusing that, you know, you listen to what the OJ coaches say because they're the ones who have to play against these teams. And I always found it interesting that Milton got no respect on the CJHL level, but on the OJHL level, the coaches had them ahead of teams that were, you know, were sexier picks in the CJHL top 20, but the coaches, you know, saw their own thing. So anyway, interesting stuff. Let's my pick is in 7. My pick is in 7. Milton.
I don't think I actually gave my pick as well. I'm just going to say no disrespect to all the teams, but I think Milton had a harder road to this point than Leamington did. I think Milton had to beat Burlington, who I thought were going to have a better series than they did against Milton. They swept them, and they dismantled Collingwood, the defending national champions. So I will do a quick pick. No disrespect to anybody. I love both coaches, both organizations, but I'm going to say Milton in 7.
So we don't have to spend too much time on this because we don't know who Trenton's playing. So let's just give it a discussion for a couple of minutes here, guys. They're either taking on Haliburton or the JRCs. If you're the Trenton Golden Hawks, who do you think they match up better against out of those two teams? And Mike, let's hear what you got to say about that because obviously you know these teams pretty well as a coach. So
yeah, I think if I'm Smitty, I mean, look, whoever he faces it's going to be a great series, a tough series, but I think JRC has had their way with Trenton in Trenton. If you look at, there's a couple games. One game they beat him 6-1. Another one they beat him 4-0 in Trenton. Not many teams can say they've done that. So just by the scores and by the way things have gone, I think JRC give them a little bit more of a game. But again, so has Haliburton. It's tough. I think this is a very tough prediction, but I think Trenton is just built so well from top to bottom. I can't. It's tough to see any of those teams beat them in a 7-game series, but I think JRC have a little bit more that seem to show up in a tough building to play in. So in the regular season, those games that you mentioned, Mike, but so Trenton and the JRC did split the 4 games. 2 of those games went to overtime. Trenton and Haliburton split the 4 games as well. Yeah.
So I mean, tough. We're talking just those thinnest of margins, right? Alan, comments on what are your thoughts on if the options there for Trenton as to who they might face?
I think they're both great teams, Haliburton and the Junior Canes, but I think right now I'd have to unfortunately disagree with Mike. I think Haliburton, I think JRC's would be who Trenton would want to play. I think Haliburton is a stronger team right now because of all the major junior veterans they have and the goaltending they're getting right now from Hodges. But it's so close. I mean, both these teams are going to be able to compete with Trenton, as you said, Alex. They split the series with both these squads. So I think whoever it is is going to give them a series. But I think Trenton just has a bit more of an edge, especially that home ice advantage for Game 7. And I think will put them over the top against either of these teams. But still, it'd be another fantastic series to send one of these teams to the Bucklet Cup final.
And they're rested. They're rested. It goes a long way at this time of year.
Yeah. And Ron, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think if I see David Fournier was listed on the game sheet for the last game that Trenton played, they must have missed him before. I mean, I know he's only one part of the whole machine they've got up there, but he was such a contributor in the regular season. And now if he's back and if he's at full strength, it's going to make a big difference for them too. As to who's going to make it from, I think that Haliburton has the momentum, and I think this is awfully important now going into a Game 6.
Yeah.
With the win they had in Game 5, with as I said, the guys who have been there and done that kind of thing, as Alan said, the goalkeeping Hodges is giving them. I've got just a feeling that Haliburton may just wrap this up in 6.
Yeah, it's well, we'll see what happens tonight then.
But it is going to be whoever it is, as Mike said, if it's the JCs or Haliburton. I mean, that series is going to be on a par with the Milton Leamington one for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then your prize is if you make it out of the East, you get to face either Leamington or Milton, which is just going to be a ton of fun, right? Yeah. Guys, is it just me, or has this been a really, really great playoff so far?
Yes, I think
it's been great. It's been tight.
Yeah,
what you want to see.
Really, really, just really solid teams, and it's been a ton of fun. Listen, I appreciate you guys coming on, helping out. Mike, you might have bumped Wash off the
I hope not. I hope not. Like I said, I hope
you know what? Let's have
the only time you see me here.
We'll see if we can get both you guys on next time. It'll be a real party here. But no, I mean for the finals podcast.
I'm joking.
Would you do that? Join for that?
100%.
Okay. I get
100%.
what you're saying about next year, though. So no, for sure.
You don't
want
what
to
I'm
join
saying.
me next year.
I don't want to be. Yeah, exactly.
We'll go for a beer when I'm back in Toronto, but you don't want to come on the show again, right? So, but guys, thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. Once again, we'll do this again in a couple weeks, obviously, to set up the final. Boys, thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah. And by the way, stay safe with the weather and everything happening there right now, guys. But thank you, everybody, for watching. It's like we said, it's been a heck of a playoff so far. The battle for the Buckland, the most wonderful time of the year. Just a reminder, stay up to date with everything that's going on in the league all throughout the playoffs by checking out the OJHL's official social media outlets. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.